Hi, welcome back, everyone. This is Mihail Giu from Circle of Being Shadow Work, somatic psychotherapist, associate. This is my friend, mentor, teacher, Scott Killaby. Hello, spiritual teacher and founder of several modalities, living inquiries, KI, Killaby inquiries. And it is one of the most, if not the most, cutting edge and breakthrough in combining spiritual work, mindfulness, presence, practices, awareness practices with trauma and addiction and processing psychological pain in a psychosomatic way. Our conversations are in this at this intersection of these two seemingly different realms, spirituality and psychotherapy. So this is part 2. I mean, first of all, this is episode, I believe, 23 of all of our dialogues, and you can have a link to all our dialogues here, as well as a link to access Scott's website, Scott Killaby, as well as the platform where there are hundreds of people engaged in this Killaby Inquiries work around the world in an interactive platform, which is off YouTube, off Facebook, where we're doing deep experiential work applying this with Scott's guidance, as well as a bunch of skilled and wise facilitators there. All right, so last time we engaged in this dialogue. This is part 2 of this dialogue called Walking the KI Labyrinth, or using the metaphor of a kid's game with 4 different players advancing on the board, on the roadmap of, I guess, our pain body, our awakening and pain body roadmap, using awakening embodiment and using this modality. So we started last time in an attempt to help new people who come to the members area, or people who are very interested in this modality, and they are faced with this great difficulty that there is too much awesome information, like videos and facilitators putting videos and guided inquiries and a lot of context and a lot of research, and people join and they are like, whoa, wow, it's a lot. And also, Scott, is you're moving forward, kind of applying all of this on yourself and on others, and you are still kind of spearheading the movement, optimizing the method, testing it, seeing it, how it will go better, fine-tuning it. So we started last time to have this talk as if it's like a guidebook to make it easier for new people. Okay, where do I start? What's the first thing I do? What's the next thing I do? So this is part 2 from that. If you're interested in this talk, watch previous episode, will be right here. So we left off. We left off at this point. So we have 4 different players, I think, on the board, walking the labyrinth towards peace, freedom, embodiment, healing, awakening. So we have a regular, let's say we have a person interested in awakening, who have done some spiritual work or some therapy work, just a normal case of a true seeker. Then the second case is that somebody who maybe has been on the spiritual path for a very long time. They have some glimpses, some awakening to their true nature. Things have shifted dramatically, but they feel that they have some leftovers in their body, trauma, addiction, relational issues. Something is not quite right. There's something that is missing, although the paradigm shifted. Number 3 is somebody who is not interested in non-duality or awakening, but they heard good things about this way of processing addiction, trauma, psychological pain, and somehow they came to this method without a serious, active, at least initial interest in awakening. And then there's a fourth player, which actually could be a combination of all the other ones, which is like somebody who could be on any of these three players that we mentioned before, and on top of that, they have chronic pain. They have chronic pain. They have a autoimmune disease diagnosis or cancer, or definitely chronic pain, contractions, mysterious back pain or shoulder pain, and they went to a doctor, and no matter what they've done, it seems to be the doctors tell him, hey, there's nothing wrong with you, it's all good. Or maybe the doctor tells them, hey, you have something here, but there's nothing we can do. So that's a way to go, Scott. We can use this type of person with the physical element. And this could be somebody who is new on the path, somebody who is awakened, or somebody, so it's like these four categories of people. Last episode, we took them on this path of all of them, no matter where they are, one way or another, they need to go through to make sure that they acquire certain skills, witnessing, mindfulness of thoughts, feelings, sensations, which for some people, this is a big thing. Developing this inner body awareness, being aware of our emotional body, being aware of emotions, sensations. Moreover, welcoming them, not resisting them, feeling them, and then gradually learning these major skills, basic skills, trifecta, reverse inquiries, utility inquiry, boomerang, different kind of boomerangs, vulnerability inquiry, resistance, mining, yeah. And all of these are starting to go beyond the first dimensions of practice that Scott talks about, just what is here, watching what is here, available, and more like going deeper in the subconscious, in the caves, crevices of our subconscious, and finding stuff that are not so accessible right away, but they drive behavior, they impact our conscious life. So with all these skills we've done so far, some good work, and one can release a lot of aftermath of wounding and various things. And so now last time we reached right at the threshold of what we call level 2 KI work, where we are going to go in like deeper crevices or deeper dive in the ocean, using all these metaphors, where they are more where we have what we call the repression of self, emotional repression of voice, repression of expression, of love, of joy, of boundaries, of speaking up, as well as the traumatized nervous system. And actually these are together. The repression of oneself are connected with the traumatized nervous system, who is now adapting to what happened. So can you, before even we go in later, it might be helpful to say why we even have these two levels. I don't know, briefly if you want, but initially there was just one level and we were studying KI, and then, so maybe we can go into that, or anything you want to say, and move the players along.
I think there's a lot of different reasons for the different levels, but one thing that pops out at me right away is when we're in the second level meetings, everybody at that level has all that stuff under their belt. Like they've already done the learning of the tools, they already have the awareness practice or realization there. So then when we're all together, we can talk the language of level 2 KI, and we can go straight into the experiential work. So just basically keeping that group insulated from everyone else allows us to go deeper. Because if we would have let everybody into that group, we would have to start from scratch. We'd have to find out where they're at in the process.
Yeah.
And we have to slow down or even dumb down some of the meetings actually to be. So what we do is we have people do all that prep work before. Like what we talked about in the first video is in a sense how you get ready for the level 2 work. So you recapped it well, but essentially what we're looking for to get you to level 2 is some awareness, realization, or practice, like you said, mindfulness, and skills of level 1, or some, yeah, well, learning the skills of level 1, KI. And then everything else that you said puts everybody kind of in a similar bucket when we get to level 2, even though we're still in different places in level 2, because embodiment, we're in different places with that, but we're all speaking the same language once we get there. So as you know, in those level 2 meetings, we can dispense with a lot of the earlier instructions and elementary stuff and get straight to the processing of the unconscious stuff there. And that's what's nice about that level 2. So that's one reason of having level 2, but there's another reason, which is when we first started doing the work, there were people becoming more dysregulated than they are now. So we were trying to divide that work off from people to allow them to sort of learn how to manage the big states and energies that come up before they get into level 2. So we were trying to just be making sure to be safe and conscientious for people so that they really learned the skills and what they needed to get there. So we were doing it for safety reasons, a big part of it. But what we've noticed, it's not so much about safety anymore, because at level 2 with this deeper work, people are feeling more regulated from it. So that issue kind of went away in a way, but we still have the issue of we need everybody in that group to have a certain skill level in order to go deeper. And that's the fun of those level 2 meetings, as you know, is because we're all talking the same language and we can just shorthand things and get right to the point and process stuff. That's a real good reason for it, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, from one angle, what the question I ask you, it's from one angle, it's so obvious. Like you go mountain climbing, there is like, or skiing, there is like the blue circle, and then there's a black triangle. It's just obvious, necessary of the beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And but also what you said of safety, and that's an important thing for anybody interested to work with people around trauma. We can't lump like 50 people in the same bucket and go at the same speed. That's important to recognize that the trauma from the science research, Peter Levine and the like, one needs to be within the window of tolerance. So it has to be somehow bearable. One has the foundation to bear it and to be able to sustain some heat, uncomfortableness, certain things. So this threshold is different for various people. So somebody you've never done. So awareness, witnessing, meditation practices, I think it prepares the container to take more heat. Yeah, helps with resilience, help with knowing that whatever comes is just a fish coming, it's not me. Even if it's a scary fish, it's different to know that this shark is me, or it's just something that is going to go away sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah, for safety, for the well-being of the people. But it's interesting what you said, that initially some people were very eager to do this work and they will do it a lot. And then some, I think not many, but some, they were like, whoa, it's like, it's a lot, it's intense. And they let's say couldn't handle it, or they changed their mind about it. So, but it's interesting that later, as the tools, you became more aware of these factors and the tools developed. It's interesting what you say, that the very things that will stir a lot of energy be too much, the new technology, which is like level 2 technology, it stirs the thing which was there all along, creating problems in our life. It stirs it, but then it metabolizes it. It meets it and metabolizes it. So in a way that's the ultimate way of regulating it, by processing it. Yeah.
There's a lot to say in this area right here. There's a lot to say. I don't know how we're going to get into it, but okay. God, there's so much to say. This is where all the insights come, is what we're doing before we get to level 2 ki, a lot of us, is like when we bump up against those big energies, we shut down around it because it's scary. So there's like this threshold that we're not able to move beyond in a lot of our spiritual practices, where the big energy stops us. And so what's really interesting about the level 2 is we're helping people move through the big energy, and so they're not landing and shutting down. There's another reason for level 2, which is that those of us who have come through the repression work, we're not fogged out by it as much. So, because there's a clarity that comes when you start to lift the repression, and you can turn back and look at people. There's such fogging out around this subject that the role of the teacher and the facilitator comes back in this area.
Yeah.
At first, because you have to guide people through the gauntlet of all that resistance. And
right, the role is a guide going through treacherous territory. Doesn't need to be special person, but has been there, knows, hey, haha, yeah, watch out on the left, watch out with the fog.
Yeah, because this is where I feel like there's so much to talk about, because as you move through repression, you can look back and you can see a lot of those insights and the things that stopped you and why you got stopped. So in other words, like when big energy comes up, if you've moved through repression, you know how to like process that instead of shutting it down all the time. Because when the big energies come up, that's what we're asking for. We're asking to lift repression with this work. And then it happens. It's like, be careful what you wish for, because then the big energy comes up, but then what are you going to do with it? And so for those of us who've moved through that, we have to turn back to those people who were experiencing that big energy or the shutdown around that energy and help them find the programs that move them through it, because it's an unconscious state. So when the big energy comes up, they're going to be shutting down, like they're going to be unconscious around the big energy. But those of us who have moved through it, we've already illuminated the programs that one needs to see for that. So we can be a friend and say, okay, run this inquiry through on the big energy. Otherwise, if you don't, you'll land back in the perspective, which is, I can't get angry. I can't show sadness. And that there's a big mind part of this. This is the other thing, is that when we move through repression, one thing that became really obvious to me is in the beginning, it felt just like somatic energy, like contraction. In the end, it feels very much like mind body. There's a very strong perspective. This is why I want to talk about landing. Some of our strongest perspectives seem to be around emotions, some of them. So it's like, if you were to make vocal the thing that holds back this energy, it would be very strong. It'd be like, I fucking can't get angry, period. I cannot. It's almost like a rule or a law, but it's completely buried. And so when the big energy comes up, that buried perspective is trying to get you to shut it back down. It's saying, this is too much. This is not safe. So we need guides. We need people who've already worked through that can help people eliminate that. Otherwise, every time they get to that big energy, they're going to shut it back down. They're going to land and back into safety. And that's the bypassing that's happening, I think, is that people aren't being guided through the release of the big energy. They're shutting down. So it takes people who've moved through that already to understand where the inquiries are for that. If otherwise, it's the blind leading the blind. If I haven't moved through that, I can't tell you where to go. So there's the other part of level 2, is just the community aspect of people who've moved through that, who can turn around and help others with it, because it's not easy, as you know. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding, but it does take skill.
Yeah. And it's also very counterintuitive to all everything that, at least for me, everything that I've done before. If I were to take a snippet of my spiritual practice, like maybe 6, 7, 10 years ago, and the spiritual practice now, I would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
Because before I was like praising very much to move through slight negativity and irritation, and to separate myself from it, and to be at peace at all times, and to not express unpleasant emotions, not to express negative emotions, as that was considered to be an obstacle to awakening. Now I'm like, excuse me, people, but I'm like, fuck you, I hate you. So, so it's a funny way. Yeah, so basically, I was putting spiritual practices that will even out my pain body, and burying it even deeper there, and suppressing and continue to repress feelings, sadness, loss, grief, anger, fear. I
Pain.
was trying
Yeah.
to bury them or transcend them away. And so, yeah. Can
Yeah.
you say something about landing? I mean, I know it's one of our terms here. It's almost like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, what does it
Yeah.
mean, landing?
Well, if you think about it, like our belief systems, we land. So let's talk about it outside of repression because it might be easier to see first. Like if I believe something that isn't really true, there's a utility with it. We know from KI. So I believe that because it gives me something. And usually with belief systems, you'll find that what it gives you is like security, safety, certainty. It's like you survive because you feel like you know something and you're protected in some way. Well, these perspectives have strong utilities with them. Um, Survival, basically, safety. And so that's like running the show. That's the perspective behind the landing. So when we land, we're landing on a viewpoint, a perspective, because we get something out of it. So if I land on, I can't get angry, I'm getting safety from it, or I'm getting love, right? Um, if I don't see that, if I don't make that conscious, I'll just keep landing on, I can't get angry as to stay safe, basically. It's a very strong perspective. Um, so when we start to feel the big energies, well, on both ends of the spectrum, we see it. So like when we're shutting down around the energy, it's not being released, it's we're shutting down, like freezing. Right there is a perspective because it feels like a visceral thing. It feels like just a somatic thing, like we're shut down, but there's a mind component. And the component is basically a perspective that says, I can't, or I have to shut down, or I can't express this. So there's a perspective there that makes us kind of land into the repressed shutdown state. And then when the big energy starts to come up, the same landing perspective tries to come up and say, this isn't safe. I can't feel this. And so it shuts us down and tries to get us to land right back into the contraction of the chronic pain, like pull all the energy back unconsciously, pull it back into that area, localize it, keep it there, safe. So what we're doing is we're trying to help people understand this concept. So when the big energy comes up, don't think of that as regression because they'll think of it as like, oh, because just like if you come from an old spirituality, when a big energy comes up, you might think, oh, this is my ego or there's something wrong with me. But it's exactly what we want to happen because we're doing repression work. But when it comes up, the perspective comes in with it and tries to say, and we've seen it so many times, it'll come up and say, this isn't safe, this is too much. And it'll even sometimes couch it in a philosophy for everybody. It'll say, this isn't safe for anybody. Nobody should do this work. And it's basically just that ego's perspective around safety, trying to land back in that belief system to protect you. So we're helping people with the landing. We're showing the landing conditioning. Basically, we're making conscious that conditioning that wants to, and that's helping them move through those big states so that they don't tuck the energy back down as much. But it is challenging because whenever you're feeling panicked, it feels very visceral. It's very somatic, very energetic. And you might not even think that there's a perspective there because it's so unconscious. So when they're panicking, a lot of what I'm trying to do with people is to say, can you see that there's a command there that's or a program that's you're literally reinforcing with your mind that I'm afraid, I'm terrified, there's something to be scared of. And you're just not seeing it. You're just in panic. So that's the perspective. That's the what I'm saying about landing.
There was some other, David Hawkins was talking about this term ego positionality. And so this landing, it seems like we're identifying with the ego positionality, which, at the earlier level, ego positionality is like, I'm better than others, or I am unworthy, or I'm comparing oneself with others, or all kind of more obvious ego things. But this one also is ego positionality. I have to hide. I can't express, be strong, don't feel. These are also ego positionalities that somehow there's a lot of safety mechanism in them. They are even more important, harder to let go than I'm better than you guys.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for bringing that up because that's some of the confusion when I do the YouTube videos. Some people will comment and they'll say, what does processing this trauma have to do with seeing through ego or non-duality. And it really does have everything to do with it. And you just said it, because these programs, so I think the reason this is elusive partly is because it's so somatic, it's energetic. So people aren't hearing, they're unaware of the positioning of the ego. So they just have responses and reactions in relationship, like hold back anger, but no discernible positioning really conscious. It's just a reaction, a response. So they're just not aware, maybe, but once you start doing the deeper somatic work, you start to hear the perspective. It actually comes into awareness. And so that's when you're probably going to understand it more, when it's actually perspective, because it's actually literally, I cannot get angry. It's an I thought. It's a separate, it's all about separation. I have to protect myself. I can't get angry. They won't love me. It's all about separation at that level. I think once you contact the programs, it's obvious. You can see that that's what it is. It's ego still. But if you're still in the unconscious state, you might have trouble with this message because you might not even hear those programs.
Yeah, so it's interesting in the spirituality framework, there's the ego and this I have to hide, I can't be myself. It's ego. At the same time, psychotherapy, the same energy, it's inner child. I have to hide, I can't be myself. It's inner child. You know, they are different words, but it's the very same energy.
Yeah.
And I see you are leading to, I mean, it's obvious, this repression that that can kill us and stifle our life force, creating lots of problems, came from trauma. So first there's trauma, and as a result of trauma and adaptation to environment, we go into the, so the repressive is the repression is adaptation to trauma. So yeah, I see now we are going more like into context and all of that, but could you speak a little bit about that before we move the players on the KI path?
Well, what's coming up for me is you mentioned that inner child thing. Can we talk about that for a second? It might tie this together somewhat. Is what I see a lot in spirituality is when we talk about the inner child, we're really talking about the conditioning that's hidden in the body, like the stuff that does come up in processing or meditation or something where you have a sense of an inner child, like the voice of that child and the image, memory, sensation.
Yeah.
That, what I see a lot in spirituality is people are trying to negotiate with it in a way, like they're treating it as real. To me, the inner child is there because it's trying to tell me to integrate something, but I'm holding off because I'm repressing. So the child is angry, for example, but I can't get angry. Or the child is scared, but I've repressed fear for myself. I've hidden it in that. So the healing happened for me not by negotiating with that inner child, not by coddling or hugging or saying it's going to be okay. I mean, there's some of that I did to help reduce the resistance to that energy and that repression. But basically, what I did is I own the voice of the child. As you know, with KI, we take it on as our own voice. I am fucking angry. I'm fucking pissed. So we don't, that, then the child starts to go away. The programming starts to go away as the pain and the contraction goes away, because the child is the pain or contraction. And so that's what I noticed. And so I just want to say that to anybody out there who's still like in the business of negotiating with that inner child. And you're not integrating it yet. KI helps you integrate that. I feel like inner child, past life, and in some cases like demons and entities, they are actually just our own consciousness trying to get us to integrate something.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. Also, as a therapist, first of all, I totally resonate with you that staying too much at the level of taking care of, honoring, being kind to, nourishing, giving the inner child the missing experience, although it can be very helpful at some stage, will contribute to us landing on a stuck place. But I do work with people sometimes, especially the initial early phases. You know, we are in Hakomi. We were instructed to detect the child state through a different voice in the client, vulnerable, young energy, certain. So you track it, and then somehow to be careful and somehow switch from an adult to a nurturing, loving, ideal person. Somehow that's helpful. I don't know, with a pillow, and bring hug it and love it and tell him what he didn't hear, and say, I'm so happy you came, rather than I wish you were not born, or you are so wonderful little kid. Anyway, so doing this nurturing, loving stuff.
Yeah,
I still do this with some people sometimes, but then I totally resonate with you at some point to deconstruct that, because that is not an actual child. It's actually unresolved trauma,
yeah,
unresolved memories, stuff that's almost become a separate identity. But
yeah,
one will go further if, rather than coddling, as you said, to now really see what it says, and challenge or make super conscious what it says. And
yeah. Well, to finish my thought around the inner child, is I feel like in a lot of spirituality, the inner child starts to come up and wants to scream or say something. And a lot of spirituality is about, but where does it go? See, it doesn't actually dissolve. It recedes back into the body and it gets stored there. And I think a lot of that happens by coddling the inner child. When you're not deconstructing and integrating the voices and the emotions of the inner child, it doesn't get processed. So it keeps coming back up. But if people can see, just like you said, that that's your trauma coming up, that's what that is. And so that's it's there to process that. That's not there just to coddle with it. You don't negotiate with your trauma. You can for a while negotiate with it, but it has to be integrated. It's there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Integrating. And that's not easy to integrate it, because some people will think they're integrating it just by speaking to it or asking, what does it feel? But it may not go deep enough, like, because this is repression. You have to understand that, like, you've repressed this emotion that this child is feeling. So coddling, negotiating, dialoguing, repression is too intelligent for that. I think you have to actually be more skillful and own it. Like, there's something about that. There's a missing piece for people, and we're doing it in ki. The level 2 is that skill, I think, but it's not easy. I mean, it's not intuitive necessarily, I think.
Yeah. So you said this just now, that is not easy. I lost the word. Integrating the trauma.
Yeah, because I think what people are they're
Yeah.
I don't think if it were that easy, not everybody would be struggling with this inner child so much if it were so available. And people are really struggling with their trauma. That's what I'm saying.
So after working with, I mean, I have like 10,000 plus hours. So you probably have 20,000 plus hours or more of people working with people one-on-one. What does it take to integrate trauma? Or how do you take people through this integrating trauma? I don't know if that's, yeah. Can you say something about that? Or shall we go into the roadmap, and now, okay, people come and they say, all right, I'm ready for repression work. I have the skills. I know I have issues. I don't even know what I have repressed. I don't know what's next, Scott. So any of these two questions, whichever feels more right.
Well, on the integrating trauma, I think I've already said it, but it's like the inner child is there to show you the programs and the emotions that you do have, but you're avoiding, like you're not integrating, you're not feeling it, you're not expressing those emotions. So as you pick up the voice of that child and feel the energy through the ki, you'll see basically that the inner child goes away, the pain or contraction goes away. That's the resolution of the trauma, because at a certain point you can't conjure that voice up. When the energy is metabolized, the voice of the inner child, you can sort of fabricate it, but it doesn't come up with the energy anymore. So the resolution of the trauma is, I don't know exactly the process of it, but through ki we're doing that because we're noticing these things are going away, and for some people over time. So there's something in the process of, like, it's so hard to explain, but there is no inner child. Say it that way. There's no inner child. There's just programming, and we've shut out some of those emotions and programming from our own self. We've just shut it out. So once you start opening to it, this is what we talk about embodiment. Once you start opening to all the emotions, the full range, you're integrating that. But same thing happens when you start to be able to express and feel different things, is about the same time when the inner child will stop going away, because you are owning the anger of that child. You are owning, which is your anger. You are owning the terror of that child, which is your terror. It's not, there's no child, it's your terror. It's been avoided. So the integration comes in that way. It's hard to explain exactly how it happens mechanically, but we see it happen.
However we do it, we know that it's happening, that's being integrated if it stops arising. And I mean, because why? Because it has been met, especially in KI, we meet what it says, every word that it says, like I can't, I have to hide, I can't show, I have to be nice, be good. We meet somehow every word that the so-called child says, and we meet the feeling, we meet the stuck energy. We sometimes meet contradictory stuck energies meeting each other. This term that we use in KI, I know it's used in psychology from the 50s or so, but this double bind, like I want love, but I can't trust love, I don't trust love. Or come, don't leave me, and leave me alone, get away from me. Or various things like that. So I guess those are those strong energies that will come before, that will dysregulate people. Now these energies come because we are prompting them, but we have tools and support to meet them. And we'll talk later. It's not just one session or two sessions with the facilitators. There's some self-work. We'll go into it. So it meets all of those layers of the so-called tsunami, and then it becomes a river now. It now goes on its own groove. And this so-called identity of inner child seemingly disappears, and it's now the adult or consciousness or
Right. So when I first started doing anger repression work, the inner child was screaming, no, you can't. So now when I do the work, it doesn't say anything. And the pain is gone around it. So that's what I mean by integrating. Just like you can actually check it with inquiry when you go back in. You won't find that same response. So that's something to look for. Here's the other thing is, even when you describe that, though, I can hear people out there thinking that they're doing that. Because there's a lot of unskillfulness in this area. I thought I was doing that for years. I thought the way that we described it sounds like I could just see the child and then just like realize that I'm angry, and then just somehow, and it's not really like that because it's a repression. It's not going to be like that. And so people are sitting, in different places, meditation mat throughout the world, and they think that they're processing this third dimension stuff, what we call third dimension, which is deep repression, but oftentimes they're not actually. They're still negotiating with the inner child. They're still just doing that kind of low level or low hanging fruit kind of processing. They're not getting to so I just want to make sure when people hear that, when he describes it, there's, as far as we can see, there is actual skill involved in this. It's not just rest with what is and let the child just unfold because the child is going to hide. It's all repression. They're hidden there. It's not, you can't just rest there and let it all unfold usually, because people have been resting for decades and that child coming. So
this inner child work, or even what we are talking so far, it's just second dimension, and you are saying that there is something more hidden than that, which fuels the so-called child, and we need to some very particular skill that needs to prompt that energy. So maybe we go there now, move on with our roadmap. So any of these four people come, they say, okay, Scott, so tell me what now? I do feel I have repression, but I'm not sure which one. How do I find out where to start, and then what do I do? And just as a reminder from last episode, we're saying that this technique called vulnerability inquiry, actually the inquiry, the reverse inquiry, this reverse inquiry is the entry point towards like a repression, general repression. Like I can fully be myself, I can say and do whatever I want, I can show myself completely to them. So here the subconscious will start saying some kind of objection for most people, if not everybody I know. No, no, no. And then it gives you some reason why, and then it gives you some directive how to be. Right? I can fully be myself. No, no, I have to be careful. I have to hide to avoid conflict, to get approval, stay safe. So how do you take people that come to you and they heard about this method and they've done the prerequisite and the legwork and all of this?
Go ahead and ask the question again.
Yeah, so took a little pause here, but the question is like, all of these players are somehow ready, they've done the legwork, and they are coming, say, I'm ready for repression work. What do I do? What do I do now? How do I even know which aspect of myself is repressed? And tell me.
Yeah. So you can go to YouTube, go to my video, Are You Repressing Emotions? A great place to start. And then you can write down the various emotions or things that you have evidence that you repressed. The test will reveal it for you. And then
Repressing emotions, a video. Is this the same as the litmus test for repression?
Yeah, but the actual video is called Are You Repressing Emotions?
Are you repressing emotion? Yeah.
So once you do that, you can't really say after that that you don't repress. So one thing we do before we take the test is we might tell ourselves that we don't have as much repression or trauma because it's unconscious area already. So we might be telling ourselves all kinds of things, but the repression test tells you what's really going on. Yeah. And then once you learn that, it's hard then to just ignore that. So when you come into the members area, when you get into level 2, there's no cookie cutter approach. It's not like you can sit in front of a group and say, okay, everybody's repressing anger. Ready? Let's go. Because some people really don't. They might repress sadness more, or some people might have a strong sexual repression because of Catholic upbringing, whereas someone else who didn't have that feels sexually free or something. So this is when you have to trust your own body. And when you go in to do the KI work, you'll find the various, we're going to show you how to find the various programs, the categories of programs that you're going to find. And it's going to be basically shame, repression, trauma, core woundedness. But you have to trust your body. You have to find out what's going on in your inner body. And then you narrow your practice to those areas. Like, so for me, during the chronic pain, I didn't go in a million different directions because I understood that there's anger repression there. So, and there was shame. So I narrowed my practice to those programs, basically. And that's what people will do because I discovered that. So why would I go somewhere else? If my body's producing those programs, that's exactly where I stay with that. So that's why trusting the body. If you go with the mind, you'll start thinking it'll become way too mental. You'll start thinking too much. And you think that you got to work at this and this and this and this and this. But your body is telling the truth about it. Like, trust the body. Where you feel the charge is where you go. No, don't go here, come down here. And trust that the whole way through. So in terms of where to go, there's all sorts of inquiries that we can show you. But the point is that you have to find the ones that are Velcro, the programs that are Velcro to that, and stick with those. Because you're going to have to understand how it works here is that incrementally that energy dissolves. I was saying this to somebody. So people are coming and they're saying, why can't I just do one session of inquiry and release the repression? I'd be like, you don't want that. I don't think you actually want that. Because when I was lifting my anger repression, it happened over time. And there were just definitely days where there was just a release and a lot of anxiety came up. I can't imagine if all that repression would have been released. Like I don't think people really want that. Actually, they just don't know what they're saying. But
Ken Wilber in Buddha the gas pump video that you are recommending, he is saying that no, that if it all were to come all at once, all the sadness that we haven't felt, all the anger, all the grief, all the fear, it would be overwhelming completely.
yeah, so that becomes part of the path, understanding that, because if you get into level 2 and people start wondering, well, how long will it take? Well, you have to understand that process. First of all, you're dealing with repression, like a lifelong habit. It's going to take a while because of that, and because of the massive resistance to it, and because you couldn't release all that energy at once. So part of the path is understanding that you're settling into a process for a while, but it's not forever, because the anger repression didn't work after a while. That inquiry doesn't work after a while. You just work through that repression, and then you can't go back to anger repression work. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, trusting the body.
So here we talked at level 1 too, but now it's even more important, this necessity to stay focused with a sector of the subconscious, not to go all over the map in very interesting areas that bring up various things, but to hone into some core wound in level 1, hone into some deficiency story. Here at level 2, we hone into 1 or 2 aspect of repression. And stay with it, going vertical, vertical. And I remember when I was working with you and I did this test. It came also, it's interesting, the test is not that you ask some questions and then somebody from KI is saying, hey Jimmy, I think you may have some no, so nobody tells you what you have. The test is that there are certain inquiries and this prompts in your body certain things so you can see for yourself. It's very cool. So I could see for myself that I had anger, sadness, grief, the same, joy, love, shame. I didn't even do it because it's so hidden and repressed, fear, all of them. And I was like, wow, okay. And then I think what I did, I just stayed. One of them became more on top. Something became more on top, became more relevant through inquiry, not through thinking about it. And I think I stayed with grief and with sadness, grief. Then for me, after some time, I was doing some other type of work around love repression. Yeah, I think I had the phase of staying with love repression, which is a very interesting thing, because people would be like, what? Why would you do that? Because love is so yummy and wonderful, but this area of attachment wounds, disrupted bonding with primary caretaker, this abandonment, being left or changing, ruptured bonding in childhood that creates this, hey, don't get close to me, that being too close is not safe, leave me alone, if you get close I will lose you. And anyway, it's a whole, I guess love repression is in psychology would be attachment wounds and all of that. But by doing love repression, it went into anger. There was a lot of anger there towards some primary, very primary caretaker. And then I went with anger repression quite a bit. And then what was interesting, there's hatred. I didn't think I have hatred because I was spiritual since a very long time. Hatred. So somehow that needs to be allowed. All of this needs to be allowed. Anyway, then I stayed with that for some time. And then I could see that it somehow also my behavior changed. I could now express various things. I could be much more real, much more this. I could see changes after some time. Then also what was giving me, what was leading the inquiry was the somatic experience. There was some stuff in my belly. So if there is some stuff somewhere, that's the inquiry needs to be anchored in that. So I kept staying with the belly, and seemingly the belly wanted all kind of substances, and all kind of substances, the different type every day. So and then, you know, I could see that there was other stuff there, like fear. Yeah, anyway, my point here is that in my experience, and you have vista of many people, it went from grief, then it went into love repression, then it went into anger, then it went into fear. Now lately I was more like, man, there's a lot of fear. And actually, you see, it's fear from the past. All my childhood, I was afraid and I forgot. And I learned how to get it together and perform well while having fear. And probably my parents did the same. So,
Well, that's exactly how it happens. You just gave an illustration of your own
yeah,
path anyway. But if you and I would have come into KI at the same time, our paths would have diverged. I would have been over here working on anger repression, and you would have been over here on grief. And that's why I feel like it's sometimes hard because, you know, with awareness teaching, sometimes you can give cookie cutter pointers to everybody,
yeah,
right? And you can say, this is what you really are. Everything is coming and going to you. And everybody looks and says, oh, yeah, okay. But with this, you can't, because you have to focus on grief and the inquiries around grief. I would have to focus on anger. So even though we're sharing inquiries, we're using the same technology, we're in different
right.
areas. And so that's one of the challenges about giving people suggestions on the embodiment path, because they truly have to trust the body to
Yeah,
take them where they have to go. And so if I were to tell my story, it'd be a little bit different. The short version is, had the awakening experience, and then the heart was already open. The throat, I had to attend to that first. I trusted that, looked at programs around not expressing, then that cleared. And then stomach, just like you. And for me, it was definitely around sex addiction stuff that was active at that time after the awakening, all stomach. So as that got processed along with the shame, that behavior fell away. And so then clear here, all the way, all the chakra areas, but then the spine, same story, different body. So in the spine, I had to find out what the programs were, and that was the repression that had hidden in all my spiritual practices. I didn't get to it any other place, so apparently I had to deal with that at the end. And that's just trusting my body, and that became my path.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You were one of the players who is like serious on a spiritual path, spiritual teacher with chronic pain.
Yeah.
I didn't have chronic pain. Yeah, I don't have chronic pain, but in spite of that, there wasn't this thing to pull on me. It was like relational issues, relational patterns recurring, ever recurring. No matter what I do, the same thing happens over and over. Different women, the same thing.
But you did feel something localized in your stomach and sternum,
I
though. Yeah.
did feel something, but I wouldn't even. I knew that, hey, I knew that this is material. Even when I had it, I knew that this is material, meaning subconscious material. I knew that this is not that I need to go to a doctor. I knew that. But some people is so physical seeming that it's like that's not emotional. And actually, you are saying that I think the first obstacle to overcome to do that in your experience was to not, you landed on this thing that is physical.
Yeah. If there's one takeaway that I want people to get from all these interviews, is that before or during the time that you're going to the doctor for chronic pain or illness, seriously consider whether that's an emotional issue. Seriously consider it, because still go to the doctor, but if it's an emotional issue, it's not going to work. They're going to give you medication and treatment, temporary relief. They're not going to be able to heal you, and you're going to blindly keep going to them. So I just want to say to anybody out there, when you're
Yeah.
hell bent on the idea that you have a physical condition, be very careful, because it could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. I don't know why I wanted to say that. There's a few things I want people to take away from these interviews, and I think we've illuminated some of them. That's one of them right there.
Yeah.
Is that what something feels physical, be careful. But yeah, so it doesn't always show up as a physical thing, is your point.
Yeah.
And so people might hear this and say, oh, well, this is for people who have chronic pain or illness, but no, because you're saying that repression creates, and I say this all the time, it's relationship issues. It's not just physical health. It's inability to really have an authentic relationship, actually, truly, and all sorts of issues with that. So yeah, so that's a good point because we're talking about repression and bypassing. So I say it all the time, but you might have to look for these things because you didn't feel that. Like I had the pain, it was glaring,
Yeah.
but you had some contraction, but you could see then how people would just miss the message because they think, well, I don't really feel a contraction or a pain or it's not, but that doesn't mean that repression's not there. Look for relationship issues,
Yeah. Trigger.
other,
See
yeah.
triggers
Mhm.
with that primary care provider. It's triggers, ongoing triggers. And as you often say, from that gentleman who wrote "The Body Keeps the Score," the trauma doesn't arise always as a memory; it arises as a reaction. So
Yeah.
our reaction, activation, yeah, are part of it is present time, and a lot of it is past. All right, so we are here, we are talking. So, and I want to go a little bit into, you said this, the repressions are seemingly different areas of repressed energies ranging from all of the feelings. Any of all feelings could be repressed as a way to adapt in childhood and survive. Also, the expression of voice, what I want, what I need, could be repressed because it was not an option in childhood, or will get more beating, or will get more negative attention. Putting boundaries is repressed. Also, if people in our childhood they broke our boundaries, they didn't respect our boundaries, like in a lot of sexual abuse and emotional abuse, how can we have the information to uphold boundaries if they never done it to us, you know? So there's definitely, in response to, I can say no, I can put boundaries, there's repression information coming up for that. I guess there's enthusiasm repression of joy. There is like, you know what I need to do, I feel like, hey, I'm passionate about this, but it doesn't move forward, my project or something. I'm actually, one of my most pronounced programs is, it's still general, it's the hide. I have to hide, although in my life I don't have to hide, much less than ever, and I feel more open and free when I still do the inquiry, especially in close relation intimacy. Like I can fully express, I can share my innermost thoughts, I can share what bothers me the most, I can be fully real with my truth. It'll be like, no, 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 be hide, be nice, be good. So these are some programs that are kind of general. It's kind of behavioral and don't rock the boat. I guess this is connected to the peacemaker, good boy. All right, so you said people can have different of these things. They can have chronic pain, strong or weak. They can have somatic content, strong or weak. They can have a bunch of stuff. However,
Yes.
the technology that we use is kind of the same.
Yep.
So I would like to sequel now into what will be some new technology that was developed in order to meet these energies that are so repetitive, and actually to meet this. Maybe we can, before we go into technology, if you can touch upon this, what we call trauma or repression command, which are nervous system directives that are telling, that were helpful. So because that's what we are meeting. So if you can talk a little bit about that, and then
Yep.
about technology.
Uh, so when I first started to ask the question of the inquiry, when I would say I can get angry, all that I felt was the pain flaring up. So I had to first understand that the body's intelligent. It's actually responding to my inquiry, but without saying anything. So I think this is one of the reasons why we bypass is we just don't understand what's going on there. Like, or we don't know how to ask that inquiry. Because if you don't ask an inquiry like, I can get angry, that area might not ever flare up in spiritual practice. That's the other thing to remember. Like, you could just be sitting in all these different versions of practice, and that energy never, the emotional response in that contraction or whatever, doesn't ever come to the surface. So I got it to come to the surface by saying, I can get angry. But all I felt first was just a response. It was just like the pain went like that. I started eventually to ask, well, I started to hear a no then. So the no is still not a command exactly, but I had to understand in a way what was happening. It wasn't just direct experience. I was saying, I can get angry. My body is saying no. So what is the body saying? And I would just kind of ask, well, what does the no mean? And it's like, no, I can't. It's so simple. It's like, why is it hidden so much? Like, it just had trouble coming out.
Yeah.
I can't. And, or I have to hold back anger. That was at my command. So I understood then that there's a mind component to it. And I brought that into thought form. And so then in bringing the thought form, now I can move that energy by making that thought form very conscious. So instead of it hiding in the body, now I can run it through awareness. Like, I can't get angry. I can't get angry. I can't get angry. And now that the mind is doing that, it's agreeing with the response in the nervous system instead of trying to do something different. Because I think in a lot of spirituality, we're trying to do something different. We're trying to quiet the inner child. We're trying to shove it back into quietness, or we just want to skim the
Love
surface.
him. We want to love the child. We want to let the
Yeah.
child be safe. We want the child to feel good.
Yeah. When the child is fucking pissed is the truth. That's
Yeah.
the truth of, so be pissed. So that's what I would do, or can't be pissed. So I can't get angry. I can't get angry. I can't. All right. Once I started to bring that into awareness, I noticed that the energy was metabolizing. That's the simple explanation, is that finally making these commands conscious is when I started to feel the energy moving really for the first time.
Yeah,
And
which is interesting. So there was no seeming resolution at the level of the story, like, hey, little one, you see that something, oh yeah, thank you.
none of
No,
that.
just by I have to hide, I hold it back. These are the repression commands. Just by repeating those consciously, this pulling the energy and repeating them consciously in awareness, which is there's nothing spiritual here. It's just making conscious what the directive are saying, that brought some relief and discharging of the energy. That's amazing.
That's
And
it.
I noticed this myself and with people.
I love how you just said that, because if you there was none of that. There was no negotiating. Once I understood that I could just make it conscious, all negotiation stopped. I really didn't do that after that, because I understood that what was really moving energy was not dialoguing with that child.
Yeah.
Was actually doing this work, was like dissolving energy, dissolving pain, not just tucking it back down or making it feel okay or feeling peace around it, or none of that. No, just I'm fucking angry, or I can't get angry until the energy just dissolves.
Yeah. I guess in terms of technology, here for all people, it seems like to use some reverse inquiry, targeting some aspect of repression, seeing where our body mind objects, and then it will say some version of no, I can't, something, or some version of no. We know there's something more underneath the no. It says no, meaning what? What do I need to do? And so we are trying to identify, part of the process is to identify my commands, my trauma or repression commands, which are these short words that are usually very silent, because I hid all my life and I never had thoughts like, dude, hide, I have to hide, I have to hide.
Never have.
There was, I needed to, but there was intelligence in that energy that was running my life. It wasn't random. No, I hid, my grandparent hid, my father hid because of the communist. You have to be careful. I'm hiding. So anyway, find the commands first. We need to find the commands first. For example, like, I can express anger. No, be nice. these are all from people that I work with. You know, be nice, be normal, be good,
Be quiet.
be
Don't.
quiet, don't. Other ones like about whenever there's a strong feeling, when I had the strong sadness or something, I'm remembering it with you, there will be this big flow of grief, and then it will be like, and then you help me see, and I could see like a image of my father and would say, don't feel, be strong, just be strong. So this is another way to repress a big expression of grief. Be careful.
Right. But the other piece of that, because I can just see how people might try to pick it up at home and just try to witness, like if it comes through, like be strong, which we do in level 1. But what we learned about that, these commands, is that they're kind of like, just the research says, they're like continuous trauma responses.
Yeah.
So this is like, you could say it's like your personality. So you go around on guard or vigilant around that particular thing. So I think the reason that this is missed partly is because when people do see it come into awareness, they might just witness like one thought, like be strong. But when it's actually going on in your body, like be strong, 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 be strong. So the way we bring it through is in that way, continuous. And that's a missing piece for people if they try this at home, and why we tell them to go to the members area, because there's skill. We're trying to show you how to do it.
Yeah. No, I was preparing to discover the commands, not just in order to go to the deeper technology.
Yeah.
But you're right, because actually some people who have done this work, now they are observing these commands, which is the basic operating system. They are watching it in life, because from one angle, going in life, and I could see it's like, oh, hide, be nice, be careful, hold back, look good, be careful, hide. So this is like goes on in everybody, while people are smiling, and so there is this persona underneath. We are running programs.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Well, something I wanted to say earlier, which is a little bit out of context, is there's a few takeaways. Is if you don't know this yet, making conscious the thought I hate them, or I hate myself, or I'm angry at them, is really a healing thought. And you probably, nobody will ever tell you that in spirituality.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you that if you run that through, because that's your repression, there's the healing. That even though it might seem like in other contexts, the thought I hate somebody is not a healing thought, when it comes to repression, it is the healing thought. So I want people to remember that as they're listening to us, because they might want to know why. Well, because you're healing the repression. That's why. And the reason that you haven't healed it is probably because you're staying away from those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a breakthrough, which is, from one angle, it's twisted from my previous spirituality to have this come up crisp. No, I hate this. I want them to die. In the past, even as a psychotherapist, the people who have thoughts like that, it will make me uncomfortable, and I would be like, I wanted right away to do something about it, to take them from there, to challenge it,
Can you see now that might have been the repression of your own aggression, and side see the shadow?
I was afraid for them to be there, and now I'm like, okay, I see they have a strong conflict with somebody, they have feeling, and I run the vulnerability inquiry. I'm saying, hey, let's check something here, and it's whatever comes is okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate them. They're like, no, I do hate them. I'm really happy when that happens, and I encourage them I normalize it, telling them, hey, it's okay, it's not going to stop there, but can we go for that place? Can we go into this? Great. So I'm coaching them to keep going there, which is very unusual.
Right. That's another takeaway for all the people listening who are peacemakers, or you have that persona. You're angry underneath, in case you don't know. I'm here to tell you. So that's helpful, actually, to hear that. Like, because I've went for years with that peacemaker persona and never understood that I was fucking angry under that. And if you could just hear that now, it can take you deeper in your path to hear that. But if you're still whitewashing that and saying like, oh no, I'm just peaceful, I've dealt with my anger, you're probably just bearing it. And the truth is that could actually be released by acknowledging it. I just want to say that to people, because nobody said that to me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I was surprised working with you, although I was aware of mining before I work with you, but just make there's some contraction somewhere in the body, and then when I see what it says some thought, and that thought is not a nice thought, then some of the contraction dissipates, more like lower, let's say,
Yeah.
lower hanging fruit. Some of the deepest contraction is not going to dissipate right away. It needs much more persistent work.
Yeah.
But here, yeah, we identify trauma command. We have vulnerability inquiry. We have resistance inquiry. Now there's new technology that we use for all people. I guess it's the body mind awareness mirroring. Yeah, that will be, yeah, this would be a next tool to learn, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Do you want to explain it, or just what are we doing here with that?
Well, yeah, if we can explain it briefly, and also know that this is like a very essential level 2 tool, and if you can say where people can find it. There's some, actually, you made the recent video recently, but if we can explain this briefly.
Yeah. Well, for years we were using the mining, first of all, going back. So mining is where you just rest and feel something and you ask a question to elicit the programming that's hiding. So stomach, I feel into it and I say, what does this sensation mean about me? And we would get things, we would get programs that were deeply embedded in there. They were coming out. We were seeing them. And so at first we were just having people witness them. But over time, I recognized that these thoughts that were coming out had deep roots in the body. It wasn't just a single thought coming out. It was trying to point to something going on in that contraction. But by just witnessing like a faucet dripping, just various thoughts come out, it would sort of process the contraction, but not entirely, because
Yeah.
there was something more there. So with the level 2 work, when we mine something out, we bring it into rapid fire. The idea is that it might be running in your stomach like that. It might be like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough on an unconscious level. So just witnessing it might not get to it. But if you pick it up, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, that metabolizes the energy. We found more than just witnessing it. You're
Yeah.
witnessing while you're saying it. I'm
Yeah.
not good at you hearing it, but we found it's more effective than just seeing those words come through once and then they fall away, which is what a lot of passive spirituality is about. Of like, oh, I've discovered something, just let me rest and let that be, and then it falls away. And there can even be this false confidence that somehow I've processed that, and then you go back to the next inquiry session, you're like, shit, I thought I processed that, here it is again. Well, there's a lot more there actually.
Yeah.
So if you pick it up, you'll process it more, like instead of just the dripping faucet every now and then, you get that faucet running. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not gonna let that faucet run so that energy can
Yeah.
dissolve better.
Because I had some clients who they've done quite a bit of level 1 work, and then they went on their way, and then they came back to me, and I was like, hey, there's some new development here, and I will teach level 2 quickly. I would say, remember, we used to do a reverse inquiry and say, oh, I can be fully real. It will come this thing. So level 1 will be like, I can fully be myself. We say, no, I have to be careful, witness one at a time, stay with the thought, see where's the energy. Okay, what else does it say? Well, I have to hide. Okay, witness this, let it be there, witness the energy. Why do I need to hide? What's the utility? Oh, to be safe. Witness one at a time, this or that. I explain to them, okay, remember we used to do that? They'll be like, yeah. Okay, well, there's another way to go now, which is more edgy, and we'll go to the energetics. Yeah. And I think you can handle it. And it's my job to track if they can handle it. And so, but I explained that's an important ingredient, not just to repeat like this. So the body mind mirroring is, okay, I can fully be myself. The same reverse inquiry, maybe I do it 2 or 3 times. I can fully be myself. I can say whatever I want, share my innermost thoughts with my girlfriend. And then there is something in the body reacting, I already identified it that says no, hide, I have to hide. So instead of witnessing, I have to hide. Now the idea, that's an important tool. Keep the attention into the where I have the somatic resistance or somatic unpleasantness, let's say in the belly. I keep the attention there. It's almost like I'm entering this galaxy of the tightness in the belly, and I'm there. And then I consciously fire the words of the commands that came from the belly. Actually, I mine it out from the belly, saying I have to hide. We fire them there, like I have to hide, 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 I have to hide, I have to hide, I have to hide. So continuously we are firing this a laser beam into where it came from, and I'm aware of the energy, and I'm aware of the voice. It's almost like after I say it a bunch of times, it's almost like let the voice say itself, because that's the program running. The voice is saying, and I'm aware of the voice. And doing that, not just 4 or 5 times, but longer, trying to make sure not to check out, not to be fragmented, but to have the awareness, body, mind in the same place. Do this until there is a certain somatic shift, which may be like it discharges, or it goes somewhere else, or there's a big feeling coming up, or the words become like, dude, or it becomes boring, or it's like, what the fuck, something, you know. So we do that like that.
Can I explain, going back to my first, second, third dimension, because that hide is helpful for people, because I had that too. It was really strong, and it hides. Ironically, the programming itself hides, as you know. So when we say first dimension practice, where we're just resting as awareness, mindfulness, whatever arises naturally to awareness, we're not prompting anything up. The hide program tends to hide completely in that. If you notice, like back in the days when you were probably in those kinds of practices, were you conscious of that?
No.
Or was it just, see that? So that's how I started to develop the second dimension or understand it, is because it wasn't showing up, but I saw my behavior hiding. So I understood that I had to mine it out. So that goes to mining again. So I would mine out, and it would come up like, yeah, I have to hide. And for a while I thought, well, okay, that's going to move some energy, but it didn't really move a lot of energy through the years. And it wasn't until the rapid fire or the level 2 stuff that the energy around hide started to move more. But even through that, it was a slow movement, because the hide and the shame is a deep layer in the body. So when you start doing level 2 around hide, when you're doing it that way, consciously, continuously, you'll start to notice energy move more, but it really shows you how first and second dimension aren't good enough for that. See that?
Yeah.
Because it's even slow going in third dimension, the hide.
Yeah.
Imagine how slow it is on first and second dimension to get to that programming. That's a good example of why we need more advanced technologies for some of this programming.
Yeah. So actually the body mind mirroring was like, actually I realized I described some kind of working with the trauma commands, but the body mind mirroring could be used on any thought. So let's say I notice something in the body, I allow that energy, I mine it, it says, I'm afraid of tomorrow. And then I just do this body mind mirroring with any thought. I'm afraid of tomorrow, I'm afraid of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Until it dissipates or goes somewhere else, and it says, yeah, I don't think I can do that. I don't trust myself. And then I repeat that one consciously. So that can be used with any thought in lieu or of the usual level 1, witness one at a time, body and mind. So that's the body mind mirroring is a good way to enter quite strongly the deeper water of the third dimension. Personally, I am using this. I think you too, and many other people I know, once we got into this technology, I kind of use that for myself all the time.
Yeah.
Rather than witness one at a time. With clients, I don't know, sometimes it feels like sometimes I have them do this conscious repetition, with the attention in the energy. Sometimes it's a certain thought. Maybe if a thought is like, I'm a loser, or some thought like that. If I feel sometimes that if I have the person repeat that thought a lot, that might not be the ideal case, because they still believe it quite a bit. So I may switch to level 1 to have a little bit more distance from that thought, if it's a deficiency identity. But if there's any operational thing, something what to do or not to do, I have them. It's almost like you take a puppy and put their nose into their own shit. Sorry about the metaphor, but to really put the awareness, to really be aware of that. So this body-mind mirroring, it's on the level 2 playlist tool. It's a very important thing to play with, which takes us closer to the main technology, which is the intentional rapid fire, or rapid fire into the energy.
Yeah, which I think we've already explained that, but I'll say this is the rapid fire is usually, the way we say it, is directed towards trauma and repression commands. Since this is for the members who might, we're drilling down a little bit more in detail here, is when you get to level 2, the IRF is where you you kind of discover the command around repression or trauma first, and then you use the command. So like if you know it's hold back anger, you rev up with that. I don't have to hold back anger. It's like you're you put bait on the hook. You're fishing for something in particular. Which is the program that says I have to hold back. You're trying to pull that up. Whereas with mind body mirroring, you're just whatever the body says. I just want to make sure that distinction is clear.
Yes. The body mind mirroring any thought that comes, but with IRF, intentional rapid fire, we are targeting those core operating system. Have to hide, be nice, be normal, and then reversing them. Basically, we are reversing the command as a reverse inquiry.
Yes.
Also, there's this element. This is even before you split into level 1, level 2. This revving up, which is, I think, it is useful. It's very useful actually to prompt more hidden stuff. Because if I say this thing, if I say, I can be myself. I can be myself fully. Say it one time. Looking at some people, I can be myself fully. Be like, yeah. I think so. But so that's not enough. So, but basically revving up will be to shoot several of them. It's almost like instead of one single action shot, we have a whole clip. We shoot a whole clip. Like I can bring my people, especially my girlfriend, and say I can fully be myself with her. I can share anything I want. I can say no. I can totally say what bothers me and share my innermost thoughts all the time. Now that is not going to be like, so that somehow stirred more. So it's more useful to bring things up. So
and often we're stirring up the body part of it. Like we start to feel it more. And that's helpful with people with contractions and chronic pain because the emotional response is hidden in there. And it just feels like contraction or pain or physical. But when you say something on emotional inquiry, like I can go and get angry, then that thing starts revving up. And it feels more like an emotional response when you rev it up.
Yes. That's interesting. This reminds me, I think I told you, although you were not at all familiar with this Hakomi, mindfulness-based somatic psychotherapy, you were, I don't know, divinely inspired to have similar discoveries. They have a technique there called to take over. So there's a part of the client that says something, and there's a part of the client that says something else. They are battling it to take over one of them. So basically what we're doing is I have to hide, I have to be good. I'm taking over consciously a part of myself that is hidden, that makes it to be super conscious of it, helps it discharge it. I think here it's important to say that this is more like a cycles of repetitive work.
Yes.
meaning that even doing one time, let's say I can express anger, or I can fully be myself, and then there's objection, and then the command says something, no, hide, or be nice. So I'm doing this until the energy dissipates, or something in me says, no, fuck this, I don't want to hide anymore. I can express, I can be angry. So something comes. So basically we can start a new cycle by arguing with the command. Like, I don't have to hide, or I don't have to hold this back anymore. I really don't have to hold this back. I can totally say it. And then the same thing comes all over again, basically. The same mechanism comes all over again, because it's not, they say, we have practiced this for so many years, and it's so deep. So it needs repetitive bringing to awareness.
Let me say something about that.
Yeah, it's how you healed your intense pain, right?
Right. That's exactly how I healed it, through the repetitive nature. And so many of us have done processes before where we did some repetitive work. It may or may not have transmuted energy, though. So then we may be turned off by repetitive work. Some of us are, because we've done that. And so we're maybe drawn, like, maybe to the non-dual teachings, which give us that quick and fast answer that I'm the awareness, none of this matters, and all that. But so here we're inviting people to come back into processing. And that's the thing that some people don't want to do. But the difference here is that you can actually palpably feel the dissolving of the energy. And so that's what it's different. So I wouldn't have brought a modality to the world if it didn't really transmute energy, because I don't want to send people into spinning into repetitive work for no reason. But because I healed my pain and I saw over time that this work actually goes somewhere, it does dissolve energy. That's why I'm okay with it. But it is repetitive. And I want to remind people, because that's one of the problems that we're having, is that if people were turned off by repetitive work because they weren't seeing the dissolving of energy with that work, here many of them came to the enlightenment message, and yet that didn't sink in completely, because they have to process things. And so when they come back to processing things, they might be like, I don't want to do this again. But therein lies the bypassing right there, because this stuff is there. There's identification there, and it is a repetitive process, and you have to be in it for a while. But you can see the changes here. That's the thing that's different. I feel like you can really feel, even though it's over time, you can feel the somatic changes, and that's what I think keeps people in the process. I just wanted to say that, because there have been a few people who've come, and it's like they do a couple of sessions, and they're like, "Well, the contraction is still there." I'm like, you've got to understand this work better. You have to, because that's not how this works. It's like I've said already before, it's a lifelong habit of not feeling stuff. It's just still the bypassing that wants it to be done anyway, that doesn't want to feel it. So there's a process where you're going to have to feel some things that you didn't want to feel. You're going to have to go through that. You're going to have to keep processing that contraction, because it's holding on. And there's even a part of you that wants to keep it there. There's that part too. So that prolongs the process. You really need to understand all this before you start the process. I want to tell people that, because otherwise they'll get into it and they'll bow out when they don't get the magic pill, the magic relief from like one or two settings. And that's where I think that's been the problem, is we haven't had great technology and spirituality on the body level. We haven't really had great technology. And because of that, people are kind of turned off by it, a lot of processing. So we want to turn them back on to it now, because we have better skills, I think.
Yeah. So I remember that in your case, and here from one angle could be a benefit for the player who has intense chronic pain, is that, and also you tried everything. And I remember you talking that you had the log journaling. Okay, I've done yoga, I've done sauna, I've done this medication, I've done this inverted table, I've done surgery, or I don't know if you've done surgery, but so you had all of these things, so you were tracking what's happening in the pain, because no matter how enlightened you were, that's shitty to live with this pain. So you were interested to see that something can be done, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I think you saw that there was limited result or just temporary alleviation. And then I think only when you start to go into this repetitive, tedious, seemingly irrational thing where you bring to awareness that no, hold back, don't express, don't express.
Yeah.
Although it was unpleasant to do it, that you notice through a timeline that it gradually decreased. You could see that it decreased, but didn't decrease in like 1 week or,
Oh,
it was a period of months.
right. So when I was journaling everything, what I was noticing is I was actually noticing my pain level after I did everything. So I was writing it down, and there was just a simple range. It wouldn't go lower than a certain.
Yeah,
It just I was just getting relief, basically temporary relief. And I
yeah,
had to understand that I was getting temporary relief from everything, only temporary relief.
yeah,
And then as soon as I started to access the anger repression, I stopped journaling because literally it started to heal. There was no reason to monitor it anymore. The reason that I was monitoring is because I could really see that I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was trying to understand that. But as soon as I started doing the anger repression, the energy was metabolizing so clearly that I understood I was in a process, and I stopped journaling
mhm,
because the process was clear that I was metabolizing energy. I didn't need to journal it anymore.
mhm.
So if you ever want to learn whether you're if you want to go to those links to learn whether your issue is emotional, journal the shit out of what you're doing and realize that it doesn't help that much. And then you're left with one realization: it's emotional.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot to go through. I don't ask people to do that, but it sure does teach you.
So the key here is to, especially with this kind of level 2 work, I would say it's imperative to work with someone at least a few sessions to know what's possible. I think on one's own, I would stop. I would definitely stop much earlier than if I were to go with someone, uh, have a session with someone, because they know, hey, there's more there. Keep going. And so yeah. So I would say that on this, on the walking the KI labyrinth at this point, it is imperative to work with someone for a few sessions. And I know that they're like, a green check mark facilitators. Also, I know that some people have difficulty with finances, and then I think you are trying to make it possible for people who don't have money for paying a regular session. There are some alternative ways to do some sessions at a low cost with trainees who are on the path of becoming a skilled facilitators, right?
Yes, but recently I haven't seen a lot of trainees come out of the woodwork to do that. So I want to be careful putting that out there. It was an idea, but there's plenty of members who want that, but I haven't seen the trainees come forward on that. So
Right. Okay. Okay. Uh, Also, there's definitely peer support. Like a lot of people are I think a lot of people doing this are a lot of people who are friends and they do KI on each other, or they witness each other self-facilitate. But
yes,
this level, working with someone in conjunction with, because also this, in my experience, is not enough, especially if there's strong trauma, strong repression, strong contractions and pains in the body, and all of these seemingly physical effects, frozen emotions. So even working with somebody once a week or twice a week, which is a lot, might not be enough. It seems like there's the need to take this on yourself and to do self-facilitation using this intentional rapid fire and staying with one sector of repression or command and doing it, right? That's what I hear. That's important. It's not just to work with someone, but to mentor the people we work with to immerse themselves in this.
yes. Because when you're sitting home alone, you're someone who's unconscious to the perspective, first of all. You know that you can't, for example, express anger, but you're not conscious of it. So how are you going to get yourself free of that? Like if you don't have skill, like so just to have somebody there who can ask you certain questions or give you inquiries that illuminate it for you. Because otherwise, if you sit here without, especially without the skill, it can be really frustrating. You don't really get anywhere. So
Yeah.
absolutely 100%, if you can work with a facilitator, green check mark to get you started. But then just to understand, they're just going to get you started. They're going to show you. You're going to have to do some work on your own. Again, because it's a lifelong habit, all those other reasons. And by the way, get ready for the resistance to come, because it will. It's going to come. And that's going to slow us down too throughout the process, because the perspective comes back like, I can't get angry. It's like it's so strong, it wants to come back and it'll stop us. So it's just nice to have somebody there who can reflect back when we're in resistance, that this is what's going on, like, because we can't see it on our own. And that's another reason to come into the members area. If you can't do sessions, at least come to the members area, because in meetings you can reflect what's going on for you, and other people can be a sounding board and help you see things that you, because this is an area that we're left on our own. Obviously, we all bypass it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, also I'm aware that there's many people in the members area doing this work. They are going to watch this video that will help them. Also, there are people that I work with that they come to me, they come to my groups, they watch my videos, they watch you. They are not on the members area, and I encourage them to go there, especially if you go into this level 2 area of work. It's good to have more support. It's good to be with like-minded people doing the same kind of work. And I have a feeling that this kind of deep immersion is not forever. So it's not now, okay, come to us all the time, 4 days a week, and do 5 days a week, every day, forever. I think that this is like a certain limited amount of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you're working with the repression, you're limited by the fact of the repression. Like at a certain point, when my pain went away, when I said I can get angry, it would be like, yeah. So there's nothing to do there. See?
Yeah. It becomes like, yeah, it's somehow the body knows when that is put to rest.
Yeah, the body knows, definitely. Trust the body.
Comes along. Now, we didn't speak about this, maybe another player that has a lot of addictions and compulsions. And this is a whole other talk, but yeah. All right, so we can talk about that another time, but definitely somebody who has compulsions and addictions, one of the main drivers is emotional repression and trauma work. So actually, I used to work a lot with myself on compulsions and addictions, and at some point I switched. I was like, you know what? This is not terribly harmful. I'm going to still use or not use, but I'm going to focus now towards fear, towards repression of voice, towards hiding. So I'm going there more, and the shame. And I noticed that there's some kind of the gradual diminishing of the compulsion, just because I'm diminishing the charge of
Yes.
what towards compulsion.
Well, that's a whole nother topic that maybe we could get into, but like the whole addiction recovery thing, we really do have to prep people for that, because if they're looking for results in the old way, like, oh, suddenly one day I just have lost all my desire. Usually it's like it dwindles away like the contraction does. As the contraction gets, behind it, as it gets weaker and weaker, the urgency around that diminishes like slowly over time. So if you don't look for it that way, you might be looking for the wham bam, thank you, ma'am, like the spontaneous realization, like I'm done with alcohol. And it doesn't really necessarily work that way. It kind of lets go of you, and you don't even know it's happening in a way. Can be so. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we have also 2 videos on addiction prior. I guess it's interesting to just wrap this up because of timing reasons. Level 2 is just not a lot of technology, actually, which is nice. It's just that body-mind mirroring, master this very well, learn it, start with that, then go into intentional rapid fire with trauma and repression commands. There's this other element of utility commands, and there's this element of, maybe we can talk later, there's this, there's resistance towards the energies, but also there's resistance towards healing. I need to suffer. I
Mhm.
need to hold on to this problem. There might be some mental programs arguing that for some reason I don't want to heal. You
Right.
know, and we need
Yes.
to make them conscious. But
Right.
basically, two technologies that are using the level 1 technology in a more revved up, edgy way, dynamic way. So that's the way to go. And you need more support, more brotherhood, more facilitation, more including now much more regular in your practice, including this level 2 work in self-practice much more to make a change.
Yes. It makes sense. Real quick as we go, if you've been bypassing, you would have to do something different here. That's
Yeah,
one way of saying it. The old way won't work,
yeah.
whenever that was.
All right, Scott.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
man.
Thank you. Bye bye. Good luck for everybody.